Today we're watching Tenet by Christopher Nolan. What did you think?
Tenet, the 2020 film, yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 10. Real harsh because it's a confusing. What is going on? Okay, but okay. The first parts, the good parts, good costumes, the sets, the locations are dope, 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 dope. It really felt like this spy movie of like a Bond esque feeling, like they're traveling around the world in yachts and like dressed to the nines. Felt super good. They're cool twists. Like I did not see that coming. Where Neil sees protagonists and like there was the mask that came off and like super good, super good. Cool twists about the time travel and very nice. And good try at new sci-fi. So for that reason, I give it a 6 out of 10, but overall a 3. I mean, I got to give them some bonus points for trying something new. And so I really like this sci-fi in that it really feels like science fiction. So they start with a kernel. They start with a kernel, a little idea. And the idea is that in the second law of thermodynamics, the entropy change should always be zero or greater than zero. And they said, well, what if that's different? What if we had the entropy change that is negative and that flips around the arrow of time? Super cool. And then they said, what are the consequences of this? And that's not something that is often done in sci-fi, modern sci-fi. Often sci-fi is kind of like it just could have been any story that happens to be in the future, or it happens to be in like a zombie thing. But actually, if you like, there's no actual consequences of the scenario. It could have been a romance. It could have been a drama. It just happens to have a backdrop, which is sci-fi, but not really. So Tenet is very good about this. They took a kernel of like a scientific question and said, what if that wasn't true? What if we changed it, flipped it around? And then what are the consequences of that? Super good. And so I want to encourage writers, directors, screenplay people. I want to encourage film people to chase after new sci-fi because there's potentially great stories that can come out of it. But this movie was this movie was very challenging for me. So the cons of this movie is what is the base science? What are the rules about this? So if you're creating a new universe, people being audience are very good at observing and figuring out what the rules are, and then once you establish your rules, they can imagine things and see how people are moving. It's very much like when you watch a new sport for the first time. A new sport, you're like, what is going on here? And then someone explains to you the rules, like soccer, like you're not allowed to touch the ball with your hands unless you're the goalie. But then if the rules aren't consistent, then sometimes a forward can touch it with their hands, like sometimes a defender. Like it's very jarring when the rules aren't consistently applied throughout the universe. And so that happens a lot in this movie, where the idea that the entropy is reversed, fantastic idea, but it's not consistently applied. And so this feels to me like science snippets. Like they asked a physicist, what would happen if the arrow of time was reversed? What would happen if the entropy wasn't always greater than or equal to zero? It's like, well, there'd be an explosion, and instead of exploding out, it would collapse in, which is great. But that idea of this reverse entropy should apply to everything, including the fire spreading, which it doesn't. And in this movie, it's very confusing. It felt like there was little bits of science here and there, and you mushed it together. Very, very, very weird. Also as is a storytelling in the movie, it's choppy. I felt like I was in one scene and then suddenly next scene, and we were different parts of the planet, and somewhere here, and it didn't feel very smooth. And so that was every time you get this jump like that, it's jarring to me as an audience member. Like, why are we here now? So overall, the movie's very confusing. Maybe that's the appeal. Time travel movies are challenging. However, I think the time travelness of it was okay. It was the consistency that really bothered me. What did you think about this movie?
I give Tenet an 8 out of 10, straight up.
Oh, you're so generous. Okay, it's fine.
I
Your
think
opinion.
I think I am much more forgiving in a time travel movie because I think it's impossible to get time travel correct.
It's challenging.
So when it's impossible to get something correct, in order to do it, you kind of have to break rules. So I was more happy with inconsistencies because I think it's impossible to do a time travel movie without tons of inconsistencies. So I was able to mentally brush off some inconsistencies without losing my immersion. So I think I enjoyed it a lot more. And again, I would like to say I appreciate the new IP. I appreciate that they're doing something completely new and trying something that hasn't really been done before. So the creativity and the newness of it is great. So I really appreciate that. I did get immersed in the movie So that's great. Sometimes a lot of things take me out. In this movie, I was fairly in it the whole time. Uh, Great cinematography. I thought the cast and acting was great. My biggest disappointment was the final scene, which looked like a paintball arena to me, which is like, I don't know. I felt like it needed to be spiced up a little bit with some environment stuff. It felt like I'm going to go down to my local paintball arena and have a match. That's what it felt like. And that scene, that paintball arena scene at the end, was very confusing, to the point where I was like, there are people just running around. I don't know what's going on. But up until that point, I was extremely entertained, loved it. So I'd say 8 out of 10. I enjoyed the movie a lot. All right, let's get into it.
Before we get into it, you have a very good point. The new IP. And so, I mean, I gave it a bonus 3 points for new IP. I think we really should encourage new intellectual property, also new attempts at sci-fi. Otherwise, we just get superhero stuff forever.
Forever, yeah. And it's
Not
like,
interesting.
I want new sci-fi where the sci-fi is like essential to the story. And this is a great attempt at doing that.
That's true.
Yeah.